It started as a typical weekend getaway, my friends and I packing up the car for a much-needed escape to one of our favorite haunts, the sprawling, densely wooded Blackwood State Park. Known for its towering pines and eerie, silent nights, it was the perfect spot for some campfire stories and disconnecting from the world. "Make sure you bring the marshmallows," and I said, tossing a bag into the trunk, "don't forget your courage." Sarah, always the joker, flashed a grin. I packed extra, just in case the ghosts decide to join us. By the time we arrived, the sun was dipping below the horizon, painting the sky in strokes of crimson and gold. We found a secluded spot near the lake, the water reflecting the last bits of light like a mirror to the sky. "Looks creepy," Mike commented as he helped set up the tents. "You sure about this spot, man?" "It's fine," I assured him, though a chill ran down my spine as the forest seemed to close in around us with the growing darkness. That night, under a blanket of stars, we gathered around the campfire. The flames danced and crackled, casting long shadows that twisted and turned with the wind. We traded stories, each more spine-chilling than the last, but nothing prepared us for what happened as the fire dwindled to embers. It began with a rustle in the bushes, subtle, like the soft tread of an animal. But then the rustle grew into a persistent, unsettling noise that encircled our camp. "Probably just a raccoon," whispered Liz, though her voice trembled. But then, the air grew inexplicably cold, and I saw it, a figure, shadowy and indistinct, standing at the edge of the firelight. It was there one moment, gone the next. I blinked, questioning my own eyes. "Did you guys see that?" I asked. "See what?" Sarah said, peering into the darkness. "There's nothing there." But Mike saw it too. There was someone, or something. I saw it, man. I saw it. The unease set in, heavy and suffocating. We decided to retreat to our tents, the sounds of the forest now ominous and menacing. Lying in my sleeping bag, I listened to the symphony of nocturnal creatures, the normalcy of their sounds doing little to calm my nerves. In the deep, suffocating folds of the night, a scream shattered the silence. It was Liz. We scrambled out of our tents, disoriented. Liz's tent was empty, the flap open and flapping gently in the breeze. "She's gone," Sarah cried out, her face pale in the moonlight. Panic took over, and we split up, searching desperately. The forest seemed to laugh at us, each tree a mocking spectator to our fear. "Over here," I heard Mike shout from near the lake. We ran to him, hearts pounding. There at the water's edge were Liz's footprints, leading into the lake, but they stopped abruptly at the water's edge. No sign of struggle, no sign of Liz. Just the still, dark water staring back at us. "Liz," we called into the night, our voices desperate and hoarse. No answer came, just the echo of our own terror bouncing back at us through the trees. "We need to leave," Sarah said, her voice a mere whisper, "now." We didn't need convincing. We gathered what we could and started the trek back to the car, the darkness pressing in from all sides. As we hurried along the path, the inexplicable sound of laughter rang through the trees, chilling and distant. "Who's there?" I called out, my voice breaking. But again, no response. Just the laughter, growing louder, as if closing in on us. We quickened our pace, the car our only beacon of hope in the darkness. Suddenly, the ground beneath me gave way, and I fell, tumbling down a steep slope. The world spun, a whirl of leaves, dirt, and sky, until I landed with a thud at the bottom. "Help!" I screamed, trying to orient myself. The laughter was louder here, enveloping, suffocating. I looked up and saw, to my horror, a figure standing a few feet away. Its face was hidden in shadow, but I could feel its eyes on me, cold and unfeeling. "Who are you?" I managed to stammer, my heart pounding in my chest. It moved closer, the details of its face still obscured by darkness. "You shouldn't have come here," it whispered, the voice a hiss that felt like it was inside my head. I tried to move, to run, but my body wouldn't obey. The figure leaned in, and I could see now that its eyes were empty, black voids. "Now you are part of the story," it said, a grin spreading across its face. And then, everything went black when consciousness returned to me. It was like rising from the depths of a murky pool. My eyes blinked open to a world blurred and unsteady, the forest around me darker than before, if that was even possible. I was alone, the figure gone, but the echo of its haunting words lingered in the air. "Now you are part of the story." My body ached as I pushed myself to my feet, trying to make sense of the direction from which I had fallen. Above, the rim of the slope was a silhouette against the lesser dark of the night sky, unreachable. The realization that I was trapped here, in this unknown part of the forest, sent waves of panic through me. The trees seemed to close in, their branches whispering secrets in a language I couldn't understand. Every rustle of leaves, every snap of a twig underfoot, felt like a warning. I started walking, my only choice to keep moving. "Help me," a voice sobbed, suddenly close by. I spun around, peering into the darkness. There was nothing, no one. "Who's there?" I called, my voice trembling as it broke the oppressive silence. "Help me, please," the voice cried again, this time from a different direction. I followed the sound, my steps hesitant. The underbrush grew thicker, grabbing at my ankles as if trying to hold me back. Then, I saw her, a girl, no more than 10, standing alone between the gnarled trees. Her eyes were wide with terror, her face pale and ghostly in the moonlight. "What happened to you? How can I help?" I asked, approaching slowly. She pointed behind me, her mouth moving silently as if screaming. I turned but saw nothing. When I looked back, she was gone, vanished into the thin air. A cold breeze swept through the trees, carrying with it a whisper, "Leave while you can." Ignoring the warning, I pressed on, driven by a need to find my friends and escape this nightmare. My mind raced, every logical thought drowned out by fear. The laughter returned, echoing around me, mocking my desperation. I stumbled into a clearing, and there it was, an old, decrepit cabin, its windows dark, the door slightly ajar. I approached, my heart pounding in my chest, each step heavier than the last. "Mike? Sarah?" I called out, hoping against hope they might have found refuge here. Silence greeted me. With a deep breath, I pushed the door open, the hinges groaning in protest. The air inside was stale, thick with the smell of decay. My flashlight flickered as I scanned the room, the beam of light dancing over abandoned furniture covered in dust and cobwebs. Then I heard it, a low moan from the back of the cabin. I followed the sound to a small room, the door cracked open. Inside, I found Mike, curled up on the floor, his body shaking. "Mike, what happened? Where's Sarah and Liz?" He looked up, his eyes hollow, his voice a mere whisper. "They're gone, taken by the shadows." "What shadows? What are you talking about?" I demanded, my voice rising in panic. He pointed to the corner of the room, and as my eyes adjusted, I saw them, shapes, darker than the surrounding darkness, shifting, swirling, a massive whispering darkness. "We need to get out of here," I said, pulling at his arm, but he resisted. "It's too late for me," he murmured, "but you still have a chance." I dragged him to his feet, unwilling to leave him behind. We made our way out of the cabin, the shadows at our heels, a chorus of whispers filling the air. The forest was even more disorienting now, the trees like bars in a vast, natural prison. We ran, Mike lagging behind, his energy fading. Then, out of nowhere, Sarah appeared on the path ahead, her face tear-streaked, her clothes torn. "Sarah. Thank God. Where's Liz?" She didn't speak, just shook her head and motioned for us to follow her. She led us deeper into the forest, away from the paths we knew. "Where are we going?" I asked, but she kept silent, her pace quickening. The laughter grew louder, a cacophony of horrid mirth that seemed to come from every direction. The ground beneath our feet trembled, and the air grew colder, our breaths visible in puffs of white. We reached an old bridge, its wood rotten, spanning a chasm that plunged into darkness. Sarah stopped at the edge, turning to us with a look of despair. "This is the only way," she said, her voice barely audible over the sound of the rushing water below. "But it looks dangerous," I protested. "There's no other way out," she insisted, stepping onto the bridge. We followed, the wood creaking ominously under our weight. Halfway across, a scream pierced the night, louder than anything before. The bridge shook violently, planks snapping. I looked back to see the shadows emerging from the trees, their forms more distinct now, terrifying in their undefined horror. They advanced, relentless and unyielding. We ran, the bridge threatening to give way beneath us. The other side seemed impossibly far, but there was no turning back. As we neared the end of the bridge, a figure appeared in the darkness, its presence chilling to the bone. It was the figure from before, the one that had haunted me since my fall. "You cannot leave," it hissed, its voice a cold wind that chilled to the soul. But we pushed past, the bridge finally giving way behind us, plunging into the darkness with a crash that echoed through the forest. We didn't stop to look back, the night full of sounds, full of fear. We were lost, wandering in a nightmare, each step forward uncertain but necessary. The shadows watched, waited, their time endless, their whispers a promise of horrors to come. The forest was relentless, an endless maze of dark whispers and shadowy figures that seemed to stretch infinitely before us. We pressed on, driven by sheer desperation, but with each step, the oppressive weight of the woods bore down harder, as if determined to crush our spirits. As we trudged through the underbrush, a sudden chill permeated the air, the kind that seeps deep into your bones. The moon, previously a mere sliver, was now obscured by a thick, unnatural fog that seemed to rise from the ground itself. "Where are we going?" I gasped, my breath forming clouds in the cold air. "We need to find the heart of the park," Sarah replied, her voice steady despite the terror that flickered in her eyes. "It's said to be the source of the curse." Mike, who had been unusually silent, stopped abruptly. "Do you hear that?" We listened, our breaths held. At first, there was nothing, then a soft, melodic tune floated through the trees. It was a piano, playing somewhere in the distance, a haunting melody that seemed both beautiful and terrifying in this eerie setting. "Music? Here?" I whispered, disbelief coloring my tone. "It's drawing us," Sarah said, a note of urgency in her voice. We have to follow it. As we followed the sound, the forest seemed to change around us, the trees bending inward, creating a tunnel that led us deeper into the heart of the park. The melody grew louder, clearer, until we found ourselves standing before an old, Victorian-style mansion that appeared out of nowhere, its windows aglow with soft, flickering light. "How is this possible?" I murmured, staring at the mansion in awe and fear. "It's part of the curse," Sarah explained, her eyes wide as she gazed at the building. "It appears to those it wants to find it." We approached the mansion cautiously, the music inviting yet foreboding. As we reached the front door, it creaked open by itself, revealing a grand foyer lit by candles that cast ghostly shadows on the walls. "Welcome," a voice echoed through the hall, chilling and ethereal. "I've been expecting you." The voice seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere, and as we stepped inside, the door slammed shut behind us. The music stopped abruptly, replaced by a deafening silence that hung heavily in the air. "We need to find the heart of this curse," Mike said, his voice low. "It's the only way." We explored the mansion, each room elegantly decorated but with an air of decay. Paintings on the walls seemed to watch us, their eyes following our every move. In the library, we found a book open on a stand. The page it was open to described the curse of Blackwood State Park in chilling detail. It spoke of a pact made long ago with a dark entity that demanded a sacrifice every year to maintain the balance of the natural world. "The heart of the park," Sarah said, reading over my shoulder. "It's not a place, it's an entity, an ancient spirit bound to the land." We heard footsteps upstairs, slow and deliberate. As we looked up towards the grand staircase, a shadow descended, its form large and imposing. The temperature dropped, and the candles flickered violently as it approached. "Who are you?" I called out, my voice steady despite the fear that gripped me. "I am the keeper," the shadow replied, its voice a blend of whispers that seemed to echo through the mansion. "And you are the trespassers." "We don't mean any harm," Mike said. "We just want to end the curse." The keeper laughed, a sound that made the air tremble. "The curse cannot be ended. It is eternal, as am I." "But there must be a way," Sarah insisted. "There's always a way." "The only way," the keeper began, its form becoming more defined, a man in a dark cloak with eyes that burned like coals, "is to offer a new pact." "What kind of pact?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "A life for a life. One of you must stay, and the others may go. That is the balance." We exchanged glances, each of us processing the grim proposal. The weight of the decision hung between us, palpable and heavy. "We need to think about this," I said finally, the words heavy on my tongue. "You have until sunrise," the keeper responded, before fading back into the shadows, leaving us alone in the dimly lit library. The night was far from over, and as we sat there, the reality of our situation settling around us, we knew that whatever decision we made, it would change us forever. The mansion loomed around us, a cage of opulence and horror, its secrets just beginning to unfold. The silence in the library was suffocating, each of us lost in our own thoughts about the grim decision that lay before us. The candles flickered, casting long, dancing shadows across the walls and the ancient books that surrounded us. The weight of the keeper's words was a heavy cloak around our shoulders, impossible to shed. "I can't believe this is happening," Sarah whispered, her voice trembling. "How did it come to this?" "We entered their world, uninvited," Mike replied, his tone somber. "Maybe this is the balance they need to maintain." "No," I interjected, a plan forming in my mind. There has to be another way, a way to trick the keeper. Mike looked at me, skepticism clear in his eyes. And if we fail? Then at least we tried, I said, feeling the resolve harden within me. We can't just give up, not now. We spent the rest of the night devising a plan, using every bit of knowledge we had gathered from the book in the library and our own understanding of ancient pacts and spiritual balances. As dawn approached, a plan was in place, risky and fraught with danger, but it was all we had. We waited for the keeper to return, the tension palpable as the first light of dawn began to filter through the stained glass windows of the mansion. The shadows retreated, slinking back into the corners and crevices of the old building. The keeper appeared at the top of the grand staircase, just as the sun's rays hit the horizon. "Have you made your decision?" it asked, its voice echoing through the cavernous space. "We have," I said, stepping forward. "We offer a trade, but not of the kind you propose." The keeper descended the stairs, its form more imposing by the light of day. "Explain." "We offer you a story," Sarah said, her voice stronger than before. "A story of our journey, our fears, and our resolve. A story that will live on beyond us, feeding the curse with something more powerful than a simple sacrifice." "A story?" the keeper echoed, a note of curiosity in its tone. "Yes," Mike added. "A story has power, it has emotion, it has life. It will grow, change, and evolve. It will satisfy the balance much longer than any one of us could." The keeper paused, considering. "And if I accept this story, you will leave, never to return?" "We will," I confirmed, holding my breath. There was a long pause, the silence stretching between us. Finally, the keeper nodded. "Very well. Tell your story." We recounted everything, from the moment we had set out on our trip to the encounters in the forest and the mansion. We spoke of our fears, our hopes, and our determination to survive. As we spoke, the air around us seemed to pulsate with energy, the mansion itself listening intently. When the story was done, the keeper stepped back, its eyes glowing. "It is done," it said. "The balance is maintained. You may go." We didn't hesitate, rushing from the mansion as the sun climbed higher in the sky. The forest, which had once seemed so menacing, now appeared calm, almost peaceful. We didn't stop until we reached the car, the relief palpable among us. As we drove away, the mansion disappeared behind us, obscured once more by the trees of Blackwood State Park. The curse was satisfied, the balance maintained, but the cost had been high. We had left a part of ourselves in that forest, in the stories and the shadows. Years later, the story of that night would resurface occasionally, each telling a little different, each version a little darker. The legend of Blackwood State Park grew, but none dared to venture into its depths, fearful of the curse and the keeper. And so, our story lived on, a whispered warning in the chill of the night, a tale of terror and triumph that would never be forgotten. The curse of Blackwood State Park remained, but it was quiet, fed by the story we had left behind, a story that ended at the very edge of darkness, where fear meets fate.